Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, enabled by digital technologies. Our meeting date is Monday, June 6th, 2022. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archived video. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to those who are joining us via the YouTube channel. Welcome to councillors, staff, and delegations, and even experts who will participate in tonight's meeting. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. And I advise that I do have attendance regrets tonight from Councillor Rothwell, who is vacationing in a wonderful location in France. Let us move to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol, at this time, I invite all councillors with pecuniary interest, including those who have declared in writing already, to verbally advise the chair in public session, and if not done so, to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. As of this hour, we have not received any advance notices from councillors, so I invite those with the opportunity to advise at this hour if they would wish to make such a declaration. Klein, are we seeing anything? We're not seeing anything, so it looks like we can move forward. To explain our virtual processes, I will be systematically trying to seek consent from the various councillors at the table as movers and seconders of the resolutions and bylaws that will be put before us tonight. I will do this to some degree alphabetically. Should a councillor not wish to respond to the request, they may say so, and I will move to the next name on the alphabetical list. Regarding speaking to our business, councillors tonight will identify themselves through our conferencing technologies chat function. The clerk is assisting me tonight in maintaining the speaking order from that source. Councillors are allowed on their turn to deliver a primary question or comment and may make one supplemental without intervention from me. We will follow speaking order carefully, and any councillor who has had their first and second questions will have to indicate again and go to the bottom of the list. This is a normal process consistent with Robert's Rules of Order, which govern our procedures. Councillors, you are asked to generally maintain a mute state in the web conference until I recognize your right to the floor. If, when I do so recognize, I don't hear you because you are muted or are having some technical difficulty, I will advise. Should technical difficulty be the cause, support will be coming your way from our IT team, and Simon is on duty tonight. I will, after a reasonable pause, call on our next speaker, coming back to you when you are next available. Should any of your votes not show up in eScribe, I will call on you when things seem stalled to register a manual vote. At that time, take yourself off mute, answer yes or no on the motion, and then return to mute. Regarding item 2.2 then of our agenda, I have a motion before me for the adoption of tonight's agenda, which reads simply as follows: that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Let's start with Councillor Duncan tonight. Welcome, Councillor Duncan. Will you serve as our mover for that?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much. And Deputy Mayor Kellum, you're up next as seconder. Welcome tonight.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, and yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously for the 9 who are in attendance. Thank you. Let's move forward then at item 3 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they require council's recognition and action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. There are 9 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, do any of you have a desire to extract any of these items for further discussion or action? Please indicate in the usual way through our conferencing technologies tools. Okay, so I'm Councillor Andreessen. I understand you'd like to make a request.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. For items 3.8 and 3.9, this was correspondence received by 2 students from our local elementary school. And I was wondering if we could have a response perhaps from programs directly to these letters, and perhaps program specifically, take a look at some of their suggestions. Thank you.
It's interesting. I was certainly thinking along the same lines that when we hear from our young citizens, it's quite appropriate for us to acknowledge the correspondence and perhaps provide any information that we can in response to their position or query. Grateful, of course, to have those letters this council meeting. So with council's consent, and Councillor Andreessen, if you prefer another approach, let's take it. But I'm going to suggest that we proceed towards the usual resolution for the adoption of the consent agenda items, and then we can consider a small additional resolution that would indicate that we ask staff to communicate with the authors of items 3.8 and 3.9 if that meets your process expectation. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else, Clerk Klein, have comments about the consent agenda? Okay, we're not seeing anything. So let's do that in that order, if you don't mind, Council. We'll keep it on track here. We have the usual resolution related to the consent agenda as follows. The consent items 3.1 to 3.9 be received for information, and the minutes of the May 16th, 2022 regular meeting be adopted. Welcome, Councillor Johnston. Will you serve as mover for that one tonight?
Yes, I would certainly move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, welcome to you. And will you be our seconder here?
I would gladly second that. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this item? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. And now let's consider possible wording here for the next resolution that we'll consider in light of Councillor Andreessen's invitation. I think it should be something like that. Council express appreciation to the authors of correspondence items 3.8 and 3.9. And further, that Council directs staff to provide additional information and a fulsome response to those authors about their letters. The clerk is nodding her head. It means that she's got it written down, I think. And any objections there, Clerk Klein, if I captured the spirit of this? Councillor Andreessen, do you feel that captures the spirit of your intent?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Because I think you started with this, Councillor Andreessen, first, welcome. Will you serve as mover on that one?
Yes, thank you. I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Enstedt, welcome tonight. Will you be as our seconder for this one?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried 9-0. Thank you very much. Let's move further onto our agenda then to item 4. Tonight we have 2 public meetings scheduled, one pertaining to a drain matter and the other pertaining to a requested amendment to North Perth's zoning bylaw. To enable these public meetings, we must temporarily recess from council for that purpose, and I have a resolution that enables us to do so. It reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth adjourns at 7:11 p.m. for the purpose of public meetings under the Drainage Act and the Planning Act concerning the following: public meeting to consider the Henderson Municipal Drain, and public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment, application 6-2022 by Gerald and Matt Metzger. Councillor Behrens, welcome tonight. Will you serve as our mover for this one?
Yes, I will make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Seiler, welcome to you. Will you second that for us?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. And let's have any discussion or debate on this one. Anything, Council? Okay, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. We are in recess from council and we now proceed with 2 public meetings. Let's have the first. The first public meeting is related to consideration of the report for the drain that we have before us. Let me just check on the name here of this drain. This is the Henderson Drain. Thank you very much. Welcome to a public meeting for the purpose of considering this report. If there are landowners who are assessed in this drain with us, welcome to you, and you will have an opportunity to participate in this meeting with council should you have interest. First, we're going to call on Matt Ash from GM Blue Plan Engineering Limited to present the report. So welcome, Mr. Ash.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Good evening, Council. As the Mayor has already stated, tonight's meeting is to consider the Henderson Municipal Drain. We at GM Blue Plan received a request from the landowners on the Henderson Drain in March of this year for an improvement to it. The Henderson Drain is it's a municipal drainage system that's located in Wallace. It's on the south side of Perth Line 91 near the intersection with Road 152. The watershed is not real big, about 52 hectares, and there's 6 properties served by this drain. They're all agricultural. There's also 2 roadways within it as well. The drain was originally built back in 1919, and it was subsequently approved in 1969. The drain as it exists today consists of old tile drains ranging in size from 12-inch at the bottom to about 5-inch at the top. Total length is 1,300 meters with outlet into the Spears Municipal Drain, which is right at the former railway right-of-way on Bill Holsworth's property. We had a site meeting back March 23rd. It was miserable and cold. Luckily, one of them had a heated barn, so we met in there. At the site meeting, we determined that the existing drain was undersized for current conditions, according to the landowners, and they requested that it be increased in capacity. They also noted at that meeting that it could be a little shorter than it is today, as the 2 properties at the very top end are actually under the same ownership, and it didn't need to extend quite as far. So subsequent to the field investigation and survey, we did find that the drain could be replaced with a larger system to serve the landowners and provide a drainage factor of 38 millimeters of drainage in 24 hours, which is 1.5 inches. That is the current OMAFRA standard, of course. So we plan to replace this system with concrete tiles ranging in size from 525 millimeters in diameter at the bottom to 450 millimeters which is 18-inch at the top. And the new drain will only be 970 meters long, so we're shortening it up by 330 meters roughly the distance of one farm. A new outlet will actually not be required. We knew this project was coming when we were working on the adjacent Holsworth drain, and so we put the outlet pipe in for this project at that time. The advantage of that, of course, is that we don't need any environmental permits because we were covered off already with the one we had for the Holsworth. We provided the standard crop damage allowance to all of the landowners, and assessments was based on the normal methodology with benefit applied to all properties that directly abut the drain and outlet applied to all properties. As usual, assessments for construction are found in Appendix A of our report and assessments for maintenance in Appendix B. We estimate the cost of construction to be $124,680. As council is probably well aware, cost estimating these days is a fool's game, but we hope for the best. After the standard 40-day appeal period, the project can be tendered. I have actually had recent discussions with all of the drainage contractors that I know, and they're currently booking drain work well into 2023. So it's very unlikely that this project will happen this year. That's the short and sweet of it. I don't actually see any of the landowners on the list, but maybe I'm incorrect. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Mr. Ash. Yes, your observation that drain owners, or those landowners, who are on this drain, have not expressed interest is correct. To the clerk's knowledge, we do not have any of them with us tonight. So that means that we have a question opportunity at this point in time in this public meeting, and those questions we can turn to council. Councillors, do you have any questions about this matter? Are we seeing anything? Okay, we're not seeing anything at this time, which means that Mr. Ash has no further duties with regards to responding to any questions. At this time then, because we've had no expression of withdrawal and no significant concerns have been raised, we can turn to the adjournment of this meeting. And I will take note at this point, or make the note that after this meeting, and when we resume our regular council meeting, we will consider this matter as a council with regards to a provisional bylaw opportunity that will be placed before us and the setting of a court of revision date. With that, then, let's adjourn this public meeting and let's turn to our next one. Our next one is a land planning matter. Welcome to those who are attending this public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act for a proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This is a statutory public meeting to deal with a zoning bylaw amendment requested by Gerald and Matt Metzger, affecting property described as Lot 10, 11, 16, and 17, Registered Plan 191, 580 Maitland Avenue South, Listowel Ward, Municipality of North Perth. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by council in this public meeting. Those in attendance remotely wishing to make comments concerning this application will be given an opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision in this matter must make verbal submissions during this public meeting or have made already a written submission to council. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this application must notify the clerk via email or telephone, providing their mailing address and telephone number. At this time, I will call for a summary of this application. And let me just check who we're hearing from again. We are hearing tonight from Louisa Vacondio, who is a consulting planner for the County of Perth. Welcome, Ms. Vacondio. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Todd Kasenberg. Good evening, Council. I hope you can hear me properly. Right. So yes, I'm here to speak with regards to this zoning bylaw amendment application for on behalf of Gerald and Matt Metzger This zoning bylaw amendment applies to the lands at municipally addressed as 5471 County Line 91, which is an undersized agricultural lot just outside of Palmerston. The property currently contains a residence with a pool and accessory sheds, pond, and agricultural land, which is used for pasture and cropping, as well as an existing barn that is partially used for small-scale livestock and contains the existing Metzger Transport Inc. business, an agricultural vehicle repair business, which currently operates as an accessory use to the agricultural and the residential use on site. The applicants would like to construct a new purpose-built structure of approximately 4,000 square feet in response to increased demand for their services, and expand this existing vehicle repair business to provide additional parking and turnaround areas to support this expanded business. As such, this zoning bylaw amendment application has been submitted and is required to facilitate this expansion of the business by rezoning an area of approximately 0.5 hectares or 5,000 square meters to the agricultural, commercial, industrial ACM zone with special provisions related to the proposed use. Site plan control would apply to this proposed development, whereby the municipality would review the proposed site design for the expansion of the business in further detail. I'll provide a brief overview of the policy which governs this application and this request for zoning bylaw amendment. Section 2.3.3 of the provincial policy statement allows for agricultural related uses within prime agricultural areas. The proposed expansion of the Metzger Transport Inc. business is an agricultural related use that directly supports agricultural operations and thus is supported by the provincial policy. Staff report also contains a review of OMAFRA's guidelines for permitted uses within prime agricultural lands, which finds that the proposed expansion of the existing agricultural repair business meets the applicable criteria. Subject lands are designated agriculture within the county official plan, and section 5.5.10 of the county official plan provides policies for farm-related commercial and industrial activities within the, oh, I see I'm freezing. Can somebody let me know if it's unfrozen?
We're still hearing you, Louisa.
Oh, okay, perfect. Excellent, great. Continue on. So as I mentioned, section 5.510 of the county official plan provides policies for farm-related commercial and industrial activities within the agricultural designation. These policies include consideration for matters such as preserving prime agricultural or class 1 lands, limiting the amount of land required to support the use, compliance with MDS provisions, ensuring adequate drainage of the site, providing reasonable access, and providing adequate separation from adjacent residential areas or sensitive uses. The applicable policies in this section have been evaluated in the staff report, and the proposed rezoning application to rezone approximately 0.5 hectares of the subject property to agricultural, commercial, industrial supports the policy directive of the county official plan. The applicant has also provided a planning justification report with their submission, which provides additional details regarding existing uses on the subject lands and the proposed business operation and expansion of Metzger Transport, as well as an evaluation of the applicable planning policies as they relate to this zoning bylaw amendment. As such, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application conforms to the policies of the county official plan. County staff is thus recommending that council approve this zoning bylaw amendment. With regards to agency comments, this application was circulated to commenting agencies and municipal staff. The Conservation Authority has confirmed that they have no concerns with this application. So that is a summary of my report. I'm available to take any questions, and as I understand, the applicant is also on the line and would also be available should council have any questions of them.
Thank you, Ms. Vicondio. I need to correct the record. This public meeting pertains to a lot description in the Wallace ward. I read something that was not correct into the record at the beginning, so let me read that again. Our public meeting does pertain to a zoning bylaw amendment by Gerald and Matt Metzger affecting property described as Lot 14 Concession 10, Wallace Ward, 5471 line, County Line 91, the Municipality of North Perth. So let's make sure that the record is adjusted to show that we recognize which property we're talking about. Let me move forward then. Thank you, Ms. Vicondio. You answered the obvious questions about reports and correspondence that you've received. I'm going to check in with our clerk here. Ms. Klein, did we receive any additional correspondence reports that would bear on this matter? Ms. Klein is indicating that we have not received any further. So at this time, then we can turn to any who have joined us for the purpose of making comment. First, let's invite those who are in favor other than the applicant to speak to this should they wish to. Ms. Klein, do we have any who we believe are here for that purpose? And the answer is no from the clerk. Next, those who are opposed to this application may now present to this public meeting. Ms. Klein, are we aware of any who intend to do that? And the answer is no there. At this time, then, we can hear from the applicant and or the applicant's agent. I understand that both may be here. And in that case, the opportunity is available to either party to speak at this time. So if you'd like to, take yourself off mute and introduce yourself, and you will be heard in this public meeting.
Hi, I'm Roger Sheik. I prepared the justification report on behalf of Matt and Gerald Metzger. This is actually my first planning meeting, so I'm actually not sure what exactly that you guys are hoping to hear from me directly. So maybe some guidance on that would be helpful.
It's not a requirement, certainly, for the applicant or the applicant's agent to address this public meeting. If there's nothing additional or material that you believe needs to be added to the public record relating to this file, then there's certainly no expectation for you to do so. But certainly, given that you're here, there's opportunity as well for questions from council should they have any, and we can call on you at that point as well to answer your questions if that's all right. So
yeah, I think that's fine. If you guys have questions for me or Matt, then we can either of us, depending on who needs to answer, can go ahead and do that.
Very good, thank you. And I assume that the applicant has no additional comments to make based on the planning report at this point, or based on your representation of them?
I believe I've been on the message with them, and they don't have anything to add either at this point.
Okay, very good. So let me turn to council. Council, the opportunity is yours to ask any questions you may have about this matter in the public meeting. So please indicate appropriately through the text chat function, and the clerk will manage the speaking list. Klein, are we seeing anyone who's expressing an interest in asking questions? All right. So that then brings to its natural conclusion this planning meeting, public planning meeting. Notice of decision of council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act. And therefore, at this time, we can adjourn the public meeting. Thank you for those who attended from outside of council. And I'm going to bang the gavel to make that part official. And that means that we can consider a resolution to bring us back into regular council. The resolution I have before me for that purpose, then, council, reads as follows. The public meetings under the Drainage Act and the Planning Act are now adjourned at 7:30 p.m. and that council reconvene into regular open council. Councillor Duncan, will you serve as mover for this?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as the seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That means that we are resuming our regular council meeting. And those who are in attendance for the planning meeting may tag along as council deals with the next items, which are related to what we've just discussed. And then we'll invite your departures. So first up then is the matter of the drain council, item 4.1. And I have 3 resolutions for our consideration at this hour. The first is that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth will accepts, I think it should be accepts, will accept, isn't it? We're actually accepting this, accepts the Henderson Municipal Drain Report dated May 2022, prepared by GM Blue Plan Engineering Limited. Councillor Johnston, will you serve as mover for that?
I certainly would move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you be our seconder on that?
I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any at this point, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Next up is the quarter revision setting, and the resolution is as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth will hold the quarter of revision for the Henderson Municipal Drain on July 18th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Councillor Sever, will you serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
And Councillor Andreessen, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate here? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And finally, the bylaw, provision bylaw, which reads as follows: bylaw number 78-2022, being a bylaw to provide drainage works the Henderson Municipal Drain, be introduced, read, and considered read a first and second time, and be provisionally adopted, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Enstedt, will you serve as mover on this one?
Yes, I would move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Behrens, will you second that?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on that one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously as well. Okay, so that's the drain. Let's move forward to the planning matter then. Item 4.2 on the agenda. I have slightly revised resolution versus what's in the council packet. I'll read it. We're deleting a clause mid-motion. The resolution reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the report dated June 6, 2022, prepared by the county's consulting planner, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Number 6-2022-NP, submitted by Gerald and Teresa Metzger, affecting lands described as Lot 14, Concession 10, Wallace Ward, 5471, County Line 91, Municipality of North Perth, and that council approved Zoning Bylaw Amendment Number 6-2022-NP, affecting lands described as Lot 14, Concession 10, Wallace Ward, 5471, County Line 91, Municipality of North Perth. Sir Duncan, can I call on you to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Deputy Mayor Kellum, sorry, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? We've struck the middle clause about the public information meeting because we've done that. Okay, seeing none, then let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And now for the bylaw here. It reads as follows: that bylaw 56-2022, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 6-ZB-1999 as amended, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Johnston, will you serve as mover for that one?
Yes, I would move.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you be our seconder on that one?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. For those who joined us to observe and participate in our public meeting, we've now completed the business that was considered in the public meeting in regular council, and we thank you for your attendance. All right, let's move forward then to our reports from departments and key staff. First are items coming from the CAO's department. For item 5.1.1, the CAO brings forward the preliminary report from consultant MK&A that outlines findings and first potential tactical options related to the North Perth Agricultural Excellence Strategy as commissioned by this council. At this time, I'm going to call on CAO Snell to introduce briefly the report and give him discretion to introduce the parties from MK&A to further our understanding of this preliminary report. CAO Snell, welcome tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. As stated by the Mayor, Council is aware MKA and Associates have been retained by the municipality to complete a municipal agricultural specific strategic plan for North Perth. After reviewing background documents and conducting a number of consultation sessions with key stakeholders from the agricultural sector, MKA has completed a preliminary report for Council's review. I will now just turn the meeting over to Michael Keegan to introduce the rest of his team and present the preliminary report and findings for Council. Good evening, Michael.
Thanks, Chris, and good evening to everyone here. My name is Michael Keegan. I'm joined by Bobby Sieber and John Snoblin. We appreciate this opportunity to connect with you. We did prepare a presentation. I'm not sure if I'm able to share that. So in addition to the preliminary report that we did share in advance, we do have a PowerPoint. Am I able to share that with my share button?
Yes, Mr. Keegan, you should be able to.
All right. All right. Can you see that?
Can confirm.
So we'll play. All right. That looks pretty good. So I think our task tonight is to give you an update on the conversations that we've been having over the past few months. Give us an opportunity to talk with you. We've talked with a lot of people over the last several months. And so we're looking forward to sharing with you our preliminary findings, I think some decision-ready insights, and then get the feedback from you around how this is resonating or not, and then hopefully a little bit of direction on where to head to next. So this picture, by the way, is in North Perth, but I'm not sure where it is. So if anyone recognizes it, I'd be happy to get that information. Just before we begin, we should probably introduce ourselves. So like I said, I'm Michael Keegan, president of Michael Keegan Associates. I grew up in Stratford. My father was, for a time, the vice principal at Listowel District Secondary School, so I'm well familiar with the area and the county. It's a little bit like coming home. Bobby and John weren't quite so fortunate, but I'll let them quickly introduce themselves as well. Go ahead, Bobby.
Bobby Sieber, and as Michael pointed out, not from the area, but this has been one of those projects where we're hoping we can do something for the region, and very positive.
Go ahead, John.
John Snoblin, not unfamiliar with farming territory in the province, and last Thursday I did a tour of the Huron Bruce riding. I can tell you that they sent me from Dashwood to Wingham with stops in Ripley and Blythe and of course Goderich. So I think I'm more familiar with the ground now than I was on Wednesday. Glad to be with you tonight.
Thanks. So we thought we'd just start with a little bit of context. One of the things that we've been sharing with constituents, community leaders, industry organizations, farmers, as we have engaged over the past few months is a discussion document that really looks at some of the big contextual pieces that are affecting agriculture and food locally, provincially, nationally, globally. So we won't spend a lot of time on this, but we thought it was worth just mentioning a few things. So number one, some big headwinds on the horizon. Well, actually, we're already dealing with them. Inflation, supply chain disruption, volatility from climate-related and weather-related issues, war in Eastern Europe, all of these things kind of conspiring all at once, in addition to some of the more kind of Western-based issues, some real labor challenges, some aging infrastructure issues, all of these things kind of coming together to form a perfect storm, not to mention the global pandemic and all of that disruption and volatility. But put that all together, we just went through a federal election last fall, and of course, a provincial election that just ended on Thursday. And we see, I think, from the public at large, a real desire to put the pandemic behind us and start rebuilding. And so coming out of Thursday's election result, and this is, I think, relevant context for what we're going to be discussing tonight. We see the province really looking to transition from election and campaigning and translating that mandate into a governing agenda, building the right team, and then looking for the right partners to make that happen. No secrets here, but some of those core pieces are going to be around infrastructure, and we can talk about hard and soft infrastructure, things like the fiscal environment, roads, bridges, transit, hospitals. I think also a sense of really creating the right conditions for business success and renewed prosperity. But everything from policy and regulations, getting out of the way of business, I think is an approach that you'll see, but also looking for partners to do things in ways that get a bigger and better bang for the buck. So, for example, every community, maybe not everybody, most communities in the province are going to be looking for new hospitals and other key social service infrastructure. Not everybody is going to get a hospital, at least all at once. So what are the differentiators that communities are going to be able to put in the window to say, not only do you get the hospital, but you get this, and that, and the other thing? These are, I think, some of the considerations that municipalities, stakeholders, industries, businesses are going to really have to think through in order to work with the government effectively. The implications for agriculture with this government mandate, they're really going to look for the opportunity to create the right conditions for renewing that prosperity. They're not going to be afraid of big ideas if they make sense and if the partners or the stakeholders coming to them are credible in what they're promising. Manufacturing is a key priority, and we believe that agriculture and food can and should be part of that discussion, including some of the considerations around reshoring. And all that to say that you can expect more place-based activity, because all this building is going to happen in communities, and the associated politics in the community and beyond. So think infrastructure, development, housing. All of these things are going to require the participation, partnership with municipalities, businesses, and industries. So again, more specifically around agriculture, This government, I think, sees some of the promise of the industry, as you'll hear more of when we get into some of the details of what we've been hearing. The visibility and the vibrancy, the potential of this industry is really, is starting to increase, although there's some road or some distance to go there. I think the big question right now is what's the growth agenda for agriculture and food? So, and this was something that we picked up in a lot of our discussions. The industry, agriculture and food industry, is often seen as kind of an afterthought, not so much one of these interesting, exciting, and forward-looking industries. That's changing. We know that. You know that. Your industry partners know that. But governments are still struggling with how they incorporate that into their governing agenda. And I think that's the opportunity and that's the context in which we're coming to you around this discussion. So their Excellence in Agriculture project, the objectives of that, you'll see in the preliminary report, were really to look at what could put North Perth on the agriculture map in Ontario, Canada, maybe even beyond. Think about what the options could be to accomplish that, and then give you a bit of a roadmap on how you can implement that and where you might go to find resources or other support to make that happen. The approach we took to accomplish that was really kind of threefold. The first was to identify what your regional competitive advantage is. What makes you unique? What has your success been built on? Success in agriculture, food, what has that been built around to date? What really differentiates you as an agricultural powerhouse that we can build on top of? The second was, knowing what your secret sauce is. What should you do to create the conditions for continued and or even greater success into the future? And then thirdly, what are the options to move that along and how should you pursue them? So today we're trying to dig into those three areas. So we thought we'd start with some of our key findings and insights around, what is that competitive advantage? What is that differentiator? What's the secret sauce in North Perth? These are just some images that I think start to hint at some of those things. As you'll have seen in the report, we think that North Perth actually is unique. And it's built around a couple of key features. One is there's a real kind of inspiring business savvy and collaborative approach to problem solving in the industry that we saw and heard from not only industry participants but others in the surrounding service sectors like banking and other agribusinesses, as well as some of the industry leadership. Relationship with the municipality was seen as relatively positive and something to build on. But I think some of there's these headwinds that we spoke about earlier, they're really overwhelming right now. Labor in particular, and the associated challenges with housing, workforce attraction, retention, and those are all seem to be interrelated. And then we were really dug into, what would the future look like? What kind of vision can we build on that differentiator? We heard a lot about the invisibility of the industry, a sense that the pride that should be there, and the shared celebration of success of literally centuries of hard work and prosperity, that really wasn't there. And so I think the vision for us really needs to be able to speak to that visibility, that pride, that celebration of success, and at the same time being relevant to those key acute issues. But really, if the secret sauce in North Perth is effective collaboration and business savvy, what are the foundational elements that need to be in place for the next several decades of success in the industry? So for us, that vision is really about getting it done for the next generation. Now, that's a little bit tongue-in-cheek based on the Yes Express, and that Get It Done slogan on the side of the Doug Ford bus. But at the same time, it's really about, making sure that this resonates with the resource funding and, regulatory and policy partner that you're going to need to work with. But at its core, central to this vision is bringing pride and visibility back to the industry, to really recognize that it's a big part of the community's success, has been, will continue to be, and in fact, you can build even greater success on that. There's three elements there: building the foundation. So that's really, what are those core elements that need to be in place to find that success? Kind of rebranding or making agriculture cool again, if it ever was. But this is an industry that is on the cutting edge in many ways. It's becoming more relevant both to and the awareness of how relevant it is to prosperity, to community well-being, to geopolitical security. This is central to what it means to be a functioning and balanced society. And then the workforce and education, that's really making the future central to this vision. So in looking at that, and here's kind of where the rubber meets the road, and I don't want to read all of this, but what we, I think what we wanted to kind of demonstrate was that an approach to this vision, when we first set out, I think there was this expectation that there might be a kind of a facility or an investment that would kind of encapsulate and kick off this vision. And we don't think that that's true. Well, there are areas in which you might invest, and we'll talk about that in a minute. There is no silver bullet here. What you really need is a reignition and a reinvention of the relationship between agriculture, the agribusiness that surrounds it and that ecosystem, the community and the municipality. That's been your success. That will be the core of your success. And so putting those foundational elements in place is going to be key. That means bringing agriculture back into a central role in your economic development considerations. Looking at how your policies, procedures, bylaws can, better balance the tensions between community interests, development, protection of farmland, the need for more housing, the need for development. These are complex and challenging issues, but ones that will need to be addressed, not just for agriculture, but for the community at large. And these are issues that are going to be relevant across the province. So really bringing agriculture back into a central part of what you are as a community, celebrating that and building it into the future, we think is one of those kind of key areas that will give the industry reasons to believe in and motivate that participation. Agriculture 4.0, rebranding the industry, making it, demonstrating its potential, and just how exciting it is. This is where some of those investments might make sense. So if you can establish that relationship with industry and then look at some of these opportunities like the Agriculture Science Center, like a renewable energy, biogas, green waste diversion demonstration project, maybe even processing plant, either expansion or new investment. These are the kind of things that you can look at. But of course, when we pushed on some of these things, they need much more work and development to make sense. So the business case just isn't quite there yet. On the Agriculture Science Center, for example, it's a great idea. It's got great potential, but if it's going to make sense, we think, this is our opinion, we think that it's going to need to align with a vision that looks a lot like this, and look at an implementation strategy that starts virtual and builds relevance, and maybe brings in some of these opportunities around demonstration project and such. On the processing opportunity, again, that business case is difficult, particularly in terms of a role for the municipality. You're probably much better off to create the conditions in which businesses themselves, whether existing or new, can make new or additional investments in their facilities. When we pressed on that, there was some real concerns around where are we going to find the workers if we invest in that? What market are we selling into? Where are those workers going to live? So it's not to say that it couldn't make sense, but there's some things that need to be resolved for it to make sense. So again, if you've got an enhanced relationship that's looking at the needs to secure that promise of the future, then you can have some of these, we think you can have a better conversation about how to make some of these opportunities work. That third element around workforce, education, youth, and careers, that's really about partnering with some of the businesses and commercial facilities. We heard some really neat ideas about integrating commercial demonstration, whether it's virtual or real, to give people a kind of firsthand look at not just what happens on the farm, but what happens in the broader agribusiness sector. There's innovation not just in technology, but in business models, in business relationships. There's a lot of really interesting things happening. And again, it's part of what makes you unique, that business savvy. So showcasing that, celebrating it, creating conditions for it to grow, expand, and then attract the right kind of talent, we think is a real area for opportunity. Anything to add there, John or Bob? Sorry. So I'm going to stop talking because you've had an opportunity to look at the report. I think we hit some of the key highlights there. We thought we'd end this with, what are the questions that if we were you, we would ask us, if that makes sense. So some of those questions, do you think this direction resonates and will resonate with the agriculture industry? Do you feel like some things are missing or don't make sense? What are the things you like inside of this? Thanks for your attention, and happy to engage in the discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keegan. Council, I know this is a lot all at once, the usual challenge of drinking a little bit from the fire hose, but opportunity for some first comments or questions, suggestions, because I believe there's more to come, and our input will help focus the work of MK&A on this one. So let's see if you have any comments or questions. I think as well, and Mr. Keegan, let me confirm this with you. If council has sort of afterthought kind of questions or suggestions, they can certainly make their way to you through other channels, email, telephone call, that kind of thing. But here's a good opportunity then for us to offer some first comments or questions. I think Councillor Andreessen is first. Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. And I just want to thank Michael Keegan and his team for their research and sharing this with us this evening. I'm wondering if this will be shared directly with the Economic Development Committee of the North Perth Municipality. And I'm also interested in having a direct presentation similar to this one to the Economic Development Committee too, because I think this would be really, really relevant for economic development to actually speak directly with, with Michael Keegan and his team. I feel that this really represents a lot of what is happening in our community in terms of, seeking ways to take more pride in what, agriculture can offer and what it does. And I think that it could really create some more opportunities for us as a municipality in terms of economic development and creating a greater focus on agriculture for this community moving forward. And your information, this report, and perhaps a presentation directly to that committee might be very, very helpful in, extending that conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Andreessen. Mr. Keegan or team, did you want to offer any comment?
Yeah, thank you for those comments. I think to the first statement, we would welcome feedback from everyone. We work with Chris and Kim weekly, or at least every other week, just on good project management and getting feedback. So that's probably the most efficient way of getting feedback, although we're happy to hear from you directly as well. I would hand it to Chris in terms of we'd be happy to support council and staff in any way that would make sense. So happy to come to the Economic Development Committee, but I'll leave that to Chris and company to make that decision.
Thanks. CEO Snell, did you have comments you wanted to make?
Yeah, just certainly, I think I would concur with Michael's suggestion that we certainly, Kim or I can funnel feedback back to MKA if council has any pending tonight's conversation, as well as certainly we can look at the upcoming meeting schedule for economic development, and certainly if that's the desire, we can have them do a presentation at the next meeting. No problem.
Thanks to both there. Any other comments or questions? Clerk Klein, are we seeing anything? Councillors, last opportunity at this occasion to ask questions or make comments. I find myself quite intrigued by sort of the theme about the savvy of our community with regards to sort of agricultural business sense, and I'm excited about how we can capitalize on that and perhaps play some role, even if it's just facilitation, in trying to further extend that reach of that savvy, so that there are greater networks and expert networks in particular. I also think, and I draw to the Keegan team's attention, the development of our North Perth technology and skills learning hub may also be part of the play. I'm not fully assured of what that looks like yet, but you're probably owed a briefing by our team about that one, in considering how one of those planks, your learning plank, might be better achieved and realized. And you're thinking about that and how this council can be a facilitator again in that realm might be quite helpful to the next work that you do. So let's make sure that we get that to you as well. Councillors, last chance for questions or comments. Clerk Klein, are we seeing anything? No. Okay. So thank you to the terrific trio that have joined us tonight. We appreciate your services so far. We look forward to the next steps. And certainly, councillors, if you have input or comments or questions that come, and they often do arise after meetings with some intensity of reports, I think reaching out to Ms. Couch or CEO Snell is entirely appropriate, and they can make sure that that's channeled appropriately. Gentlemen, thank you. Okay, great. We have a council resolution for our consideration regarding this matter. The resolution reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the North Perth Agricultural Excellence Project Preliminary Report dated May 2022, prepared by Michael Keegan and Associates for information. Councillor Seiler, will you serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
And Councillor Andreessen, will you be our seconder here?
Yes, I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this motion? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Again, gentlemen, thank you. Let's turn to item 5.1.2. In this item, the municipality has been provided with a memorandum of understanding by the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority that stipulates services that will be provided should we agree under contract for a period of 4 years. I think it's Ms. Hale. I'm checking with the clerk. Okay, so CAO Snell is going to pick this up. I think the report was penned by Ms. Hale, but CAO Snell, looks like you're up for comments and an introduction to this matter. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you again, Council. Just before we leave the last matter, and it's certainly not a hard and fast deadline, but if Council could have any comments back to Kim or I by Friday, that would help keep us on the timelines for the project. Like I said, it's certainly not the end of the discussions, but if you had comments regarding tonight's presentation from MK, Friday would be appropriate to have some of those comments and questions in. Yes, the second report is dealing with the Memorandum of Understanding from the Conservation Authority. I would like to thank Fran for preparing the report. As Council is aware, Council supported the proposed inventory of programs and services in a previous report. And now they have submitted a draft MOU outlining the services provided by the Conservation Authority for Council's consideration. The letter from Chair Duncan is attached for your review. The most important probably comment is that the inventory of programs and services has always been included in our annual levy. So really nothing is changing going forward as far as our commitment to the annual levy. And the recommendation is that we give authorization for the mayor and clerk to sign the memorandum of understanding with MVCA for the agreement of services. I'm prepared to answer any questions council may have.
Thanks, Mr. Snell. Council, any comments, first comments or questions on this matter? We're not seeing any indication of that, so let's have the resolution. It reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth authorizes the mayor and the clerk to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority for the provision of services detailed in Schedule A of the document referenced as Agreement of Services. Can I call on Councillor Anstett to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I would be happy to second that motion. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. For item 5.1.3, my number's right, Council is invited to implement a right to disconnect policy for employees as mandated by Ontario through its recent approval of Bill 27, Working for Workers Act. Council's Human Resources Committee has conducted a lengthy discussion about this matter. Human Resources Team Lead Kelly Fraser will provide an overview to Council on this matter. Ms. Fraser, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Good evening, Council. So tonight I am proposing a new HR policy, the right to disconnect policy, which stems from Bill 27, as mentioned, the Working for Workers Act, which was passed in December of 2021. And it requires employers who employ more than 25 employees to have a written policy in place for all employees with respect to disconnecting from work. So disconnecting from work is defined as not engaging in any work-related communications outside of work. And ultimately, this policy is establishing guidelines for encouraging work-life balance through communication and setting healthy boundaries. So this policy has been presented to the HR committee as well as the senior leadership team for discussion and review, as Mayor Kaysenberg has mentioned. And additionally, it's been prepared based on the legislative requirements of Bill 27, previously outlined provincial guidance, and networking and benchmarking with other municipal organizations. So in summary, I am recommending that Council approves the HR policy respecting disconnecting from work as required by Bill 27, Working for Workers Act. Thank you. Open to any questions that anyone may have.
Thanks, Ms. Zerk. Council, any questions or first comments on this matter? Okay, we're not seeing anything. So I have a resolution for consideration. It reads as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the HR policy respecting disconnecting from work as required by Bill 27, Working for Workers Act 2021. Councillor Duncan, can I call on you to be our mover for that?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you be our seconder?
Absolutely. I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. In item 5.1.4, Council is invited to approve an award for AV design and equipment associated with the new North Perth Technology and Skills Learning Hub. The proponent recommended is Matrix Video Communications Corp, and the amount is $325,000 excluding HST. I believe Ms. Couch is on with us, so I'll invite her. She's our Community Development Coordinator to present information about this action. Ms. Couch, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, and thank you, members of Council, for the opportunity to share this result with you this evening. So as Council is aware, the municipality has been successful in being awarded funding for the Skills Development Fund, and it's tasked with enabling rural communities, North Perth and regionally, to better equip and educate employees, job seekers, and youth for the various skills identified locally. So one of the first methods to accomplish this was through, and to proceed with the project, was the initiation of request for proposal for the design and provision and installation of AV equipment to create a world-class learning space. The facility will connect learners both in person, remotely, and or virtually, and in class, as well as hybrid, to give a really very flexible options for learning creation in the future, presently, but moving into the future. So we did receive 4 submissions for the project. They were given the budget amount that was available and were to supply their recommendations for the best design and equipment to meet our needs. They were evaluated on that basis, as well as the capability and experience in carrying out a similar project. Also providing proof or documentation to demonstrate their ability to meet the timelines, which is very short, given especially some of the supply chain challenges that are being experienced, as well that they with the overall cost. So once the submissions were reviewed by the review committee, we had the top candidate come in and give a presentation to including with staff, with IT staff, and with facilities departments, And at the conclusion of that presentation, all involved agreed that the Matrix's proposal was the ideal solution and agreed to partner with them moving forward. So their solution, one highlight I'll just mention is their ability to have the flexibility in offering learning stations. So 5 different learning stations within the space, as well as a larger classroom setting that would be conducive for up to 30 people. So we were impressed by this presentation, and just really opens lots of opportunities for meeting the needs of our employers and for job seekers and learners in North Perth and region in the future. So our recommendation is to accept the proposal by Matrix. It came in at $287,503. That is before HST. We think that there may be some areas that we can expand that or may need to expand the equipment. So there's the potential for that amount to increase, but it still is well within the budget stipulations from the provincial funding that we've received. I'm happy to receive any questions that might be.
Thank you, Ms. Couch. Are there any questions or first comments on this matter from council? Okay, the clerk advises she's not seeing any, so let's have the resolution then that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth award the AV design and equipment for the North Perth Regional Technology and Skills Learning Hub request for proposal NP-004-22P to Matrix Video Communications Corp for a total cost up to $325,000. Can I call on Councillor Johnston to be our mover for this?
Yes, I would move this exciting project. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you be our seconder?
I will happily second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. I believe that brings to an end our reports from the CAO's department. Let's move then to item 5.2 on our agenda, reports from the Corporate Services Department. Please take note that we've sort of updated our structure around these reports in our meeting, Council. So for item 5.2.1, the clerk has brought forward a report further to a request from Councillor Seiler that presents options related to our earlier decision made in certainly different circumstances to hold virtual and remote council meetings. The report offers 4 options, and of course it is possible for council to create other possibilities. At this time, I'm going to call on North Perth Clerk Lindsay Klein to speak to this report. Ms. Klein, let me create the AV conditions so we don't create a black hole. Just hold on.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. To you and members of council, before you is a report that staff were directed to bring forward regarding possible approaches to the format of future council meetings in light of the easing of COVID-19 restrictions. The province has eased most of its restrictions regarding physical distancing, masking, and gathering limits. Huron Perth Public Health has provided municipalities with some recommendations regarding a cautious approach to resuming in-person meetings and events while we transition our focus to living with and managing COVID-19. And these recommendations have been included as an attachment to the report. So staff has provided some options for council's consideration and to provide direction on the format of council meetings going forward. All of these options do have their own pros and cons, and there are various complexities for consideration. And with any of the options, live streaming of the meetings will continue on YouTube. So option 1 is remaining fully virtual and would see no change to the current process. While this option would provide the greatest flexibility and convenience for attendees, staff do recognize that there are aspects of in-person meetings that can't be replicated or captured in a virtual environment. Option 2 would be resuming fully in-person meetings similar to a pre-COVID-19 format.
We could reconfigure desks and chairs to allow for some physical distancing in council chambers. However, depending on how many staff, delegations, and members of the public attend, distancing would be limited and some attendees may not be comfortable yet attending an in-person meeting. Option 3 is a hybrid option with all members of council attending in person and staff, delegations, and members of the public having the option to attend virtually or in person. From an information technology or IT perspective, the current equipment and staff resources are able to support this option without any additional financial implications. Some reconfiguration of desks in council chambers could extend the council horseshoe to allow for some distancing between council members, and the existing camera would provide a wide-angle shot of council chambers for those participating virtually. One thing that I just like to note that was looked at after the report was written is the option to also order plexiglass barriers to place between council members around the horseshoe, and this would come at an additional cost of roughly $200 per barrier. The final option is a fully hybrid option, which would permit council members to participate in the meeting either in person or virtually, and staff, delegations, and members of the public would also have the option of attending either in person or virtually. This option would be the most challenging to implement and would require additional equipment and staff resources. To ensure equity among council members participating in person and those participating virtually, additional cameras would need to be purchased, and additional IT staff would need to attend all council meetings to support this option. So the initial cost estimate for this option is about $40,000 to purchase cameras and equipment. However, it's anticipated there will be additional costs for construction, installation, and staff time. A phased approach could also be taken with some of these options. For example, for option 3, all members of council could resume attending meetings in person and we could have all other attendees remaining virtual. And after a couple weeks, if things go well, we could revisit that option and we could give the option for staff, delegations, and the public to begin attending in person as well. So the recommendation before council is to provide staff with direction on approving one of the 4 options for the format of future council meetings. And we do have an effective date here of June 20th. That being said, option 4, the fully hybrid option, that would take additional time beyond the June 20th date, likely a couple months, as an RFP would need to be undertaken, equipment would need to be ordered, set up, and fully tested before implementation. And staff is also recommending that an amendment be brought forward to the procedural bylaw if required, depending on the option that council approves. So that is my report, and I would be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Klein. Questions, first comments from council? We will be turning to you to choose either one of the options here or stipulate some hybrid or alternative option before this session is concluded. Klein, do we have speakers list here? Let's go to Councillor Andreessen first.
Hi, thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. My question and suggestion might need to be addressed also through perhaps our IT department, and I know some of them are here tonight. So I want to just talk about option number 4 for a minute around the fully hybrid option. I fully realize that it's, pretty costly to invest in those cameras and to get all that in place. But I have a thought around this, and perhaps IT could, provide some comment. My comment about this is that right now we are all participating in this meeting virtually, and we all have cameras. And our cameras are being serviced through our own computers. And we're transmitting through WebEx. So is there a possibility that rather than purchasing cameras, could we use our computers to transmit our images and be fully hybrid, whether we're present in the chamber or present at another location, and use our computers for that and continue to use WebEx, whether in that hybrid type of format again, this is more of a question for IT. So again, the question is, could we use our computer cameras in the format of WebEx to create that fully hybrid component without the investment of all that money, like over $40,000 to become fully hybrid? Thank you.
Okay, I'm just conferring with the clerk, Councillor Andreessen. We do have Simon available with us tonight. I don't know that it's completely reasonable to call on him at this point to answer that question, because it probably would take a little bit of research. If Simon is paying attention and has first response on behalf of IT, then Clerk Klein suggests that perhaps we should invite Simon to open his microphone and let us know. Simon, are you with us? Can you hear us? Okay,
Hello, yes, I can.
Oh, there we go. Okay, Simon, I'm going to trust that you heard Councillor Andreessen's question. And I hate putting you on the spot because, you know, it probably requires some research or prep time. But if you'd like to offer any comments in response to her question, first thoughts, perhaps that could be of some assistance.
So yes, it would be possible to use the devices. With that said, we would have to undergo a wireless network upgrade to provide more bandwidth and purchase more bandwidth for all of the devices to transmit audio and video from down there. Second, when you get all of the devices in there, if not everybody's wearing headsets, you'll get major audio feedback issues from device to device. And it's a lot harder to control that way.
Okay, that's first feedback. I'm sure there's probably more that would be considered with a little bit of research time, but first feedback from our IT guru on call here tonight. Thank you for that, Simon.
Mayor Kiesenberg, is it okay if that is that suggestion be looked into further, kind of as option 5, I guess, because, you know, what would be the cost of looking at that bandwidth? I don't know. And it sounds like it could be doable if we did wear headsets. Most of us use the headsets now. So if that could be researched and considered, that would be interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we'll seek council's consent before the end of this, but let's keep that on our horizon here for tonight's meeting and discussion. Clerk Klein, do we have another speaker on the list? Councillor Richardson, you're next.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Kiesenberg, personally, with the options provided, I honestly think that we need to get back in some form or function. Personally, I am in favor of option 3, of which council and staff would be in the chambers. And then if any delegates or that we happen to have any presentations from outside consortiums of some description that happen to be from a long distance, they can participate virtually. I happen to think that option 3 could certainly work. And in the event that the COVID situation happens to turn around, let's hope not again, but we certainly have the option to go to the way that we're doing it right now. I can certainly appreciate Councillor Andreessen's wanting curiosity of possibly looking into the fully hybrid system more so. But for the time being, I think that we sort of need to get some sense of normal back into council chambers and to possibly look at getting back in. Option 3 or a derivative thereof of option 3 would be my choice, but that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Who's next? Councillor Burns is next.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg. I do believe that Councillor Andreessen's option should probably be investigated further, just so that we know the true cost, because perhaps with the way our future is going, we're going to require that additional bandwidth anyway. My concern is when we start cluttering the council chambers with plexiglass and that sort of thing for separation, with all the cameras in there, and the possibility of light reflecting. I'm not sure that's a way that I want to go. I actually prefer a reverse option 3, which would see the staff and the members of public attend the chambers and council members remain virtual for the time being, because my intention is to get to a fully functioning option 2. That would be, I agree with Councillor Richardson in that we need to get back to doing the business as efficiently as possible. And I do believe that is within the chambers. So my vote is really investigate their options, but somewhat of a reverse option 3 that deals with all staff coming back and members of the public coming back and then council coming back. So it makes, it's good that we're having this conversation, but I do believe that we need to continue to move forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Do we have another speaker? Councillor Duncan, you're next.
I like option 3. I agree with Matt. I think it's time we come back to the council chambers and start moving ahead and go back to normal function again. I'm not, opposed to doing it in a staged manner where, we start out with just council and then add staff and public as we go. But option 3 is my opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Johnston is next.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I'm also in favor of option 3, and hopefully getting to option 2. But I've just returned from overseas, and we were through 4 international airports, and the only time that we were mandated to wear a mask anymore was on a plane, and I believe that's going to be ending on a lot of European flights again shortly. But we were also in the Parliament of the province of Mecklenburg in Germany, and they are meeting in person as well right now again. So seeing what's happening out in the world, but also what's happening locally here, I think it's time that we get back in person as a council. I believe we are more effective when we are in person. Not that I don't think the way we're doing it right now has not been very good. It's been very good for the way we've been, but I think it is time to get back to in person. I believe we have to live with COVID and deal with the ramifications of it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Kellum is next.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, I also agree with option 3 as well, moving towards getting back to option 2 gradually. I think it's a fresh start, and I've clicked into or tuned into a couple of West Perth meetings, and I see they've gone that route as well. So I am in favor of option 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Councillor Seiler is next.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, and thank you all my colleagues for all your comments. They're valuable comments and what have you, but I also feel that option 3 would be the way to go. I feel we have to get back and do our due diligence for our ratepayers and what have you. So I am also in favor of option 3, making it work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstead.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, through you, and I appreciate everybody, all the other councillors' comments. Just going back to what Councillor Andreessen said, I am interested in learning more. Obviously, the consensus is option 3, and that's fine. I think that I would like to see some more investigation done on the cameras to see if that, because that's a lot of money to be spending for something that we may already be able to do. So again, more information required from me before I can make a firm decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Klein, do we have any others wishing to speak at this point? Okay, I'll offer a few comments, if I might, of my own. There seems to be sort of a split, if you will, at council at this point between a little bit more information required and a few other options considered versus option 3, which brings council back into the chamber, but essentially allows all others to connect remotely including staff. I find myself wondering if in some ways we're not being too hard on ourselves by saying that we all have to be here, but staff don't have to be here and the public don't have to come in here. And to me, that strangely represents a kind of reverse inequity that is a little odd. I'm all for accountability and transparency in our processes and welcoming the public. And certainly I have enjoyed having people in the gallery, if you will, and staff and all of us together from a social perspective, from an effectiveness perspective. But I am a little bit concerned about sending the message that every councillor must be here. That's sort of the new norm and that they can't connect either. But as soon as we say they can't connect either, we create the problem of inequity in a different way, different faces having a little bit more face time, if you will, on the screen than others, which we're currently seeing, in my opinion, at Perth County. And I'm not convinced that that's the best model at this point in time. I will further add that you know, we have all along tried to follow carefully the guidance and the advice, well-intended and carefully given by our medical officer of health. And she certainly has encouraged us to continue to do things like maintain social distancing in indoor public spaces. She was actually challenged on this matter at the Board of Health on Friday by another member of the Board of Health, and reiterated her guidance and her belief that we need to be more cautious, admitting that the horse has left the barn, largely, that the public has changed its sensitivity to this issue, but still that is the formal advice that she gives. And from her perspective, that also means wearing masks in public spaces, indoor public spaces. So, you know, if we're going to be reasonable as we have been all along and trying to align with the guidance of the medical officer of health, then to return to this chamber does, from my take, require us to ensure that we've got that 6 feet of distance that was recommended all along, and does require all of us to wear masks when we're in this chamber based on Dr. Clausen's advice. Just a thought. There is some furnishing complexity potentially in trying to achieve 6 feet of distance in this chamber, and poor Clerk Klein gets my mindful on that one several times now. There will be some furnishing complexities, I think, that we'll have to consider as we look at that. So I find myself as chair at this point wanting to invite any further comment, any if you want, a rebuttal to my comments on this or any other councillors' comments on this before we consider an option. And I'm hearing kind of a split around seeking more information versus making a decision for option 3 at this point. I'm hunching at this point that 3 looks a little more supported, but I would want to put that to the test. So councillors, if you want to have a second crack at this, please do. For Klein, do we have anyone? Councillor Duncan first, please.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment regarding the masking requirements. I'll be honest, I'm not in favor of the masking requirements at all, because nowhere else in the public nowadays are people wearing masks, you know, unless they've decided to do on their own accord. I think that, you know, it's a little redundant at this point. So I definitely wouldn't be in favor of forcing us to wear masks in the council chambers.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Behrens is next.
Yeah, just on the masking issue, I think personal choice is important, and if anyone chooses to wear a mask, they're certainly welcome to. My concern really with option 3 is that I think it should be reversed. To get staff, they're used to working together, or should be used to working together, and getting them back in the chambers, and I think we can safely social distance them. And in addition to that, I know I've received a little bit of feedback on people would like to know what's going on, but right now the chamber is not open, transparent, and accountable to the public unless you have internet connection or whatever. And I think for me, saying the reverse option 3 was that those who do not have the broadband or the Wi-Fi or whatever technologies they need to view online, wouldn't it be better to bring those back first? We struggle with the IT from one meeting to the next, but it's still technically working. I think there's a little bit more to consider in this than just it's time to get back. I agree it's time to get back, but I do believe that the process might require a little bit more thought. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Andreessen is next.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I would love to get back together as well. I believe that, you know, there's a lot to be said for working together in that closer proximity. But I have some concerns around what you had mentioned around the furniture. Some of us are sharing desks around the council table, and ideally we should be kind of separated more, and not necessarily through always through plexiglass, but even just a workspace. So I have to agree with you that there are some furniture complexities that need to be worked out prior to us returning. And would that furniture configuration be reconsidered by June the 20th? Because I think some work has to be done. And I feel that as Councillor Behrens had said, I feel like there needs to be a little bit more work to be done in exploring that option. If we are to return, what does that look like in terms of our workspace in that room? That would be helpful for that kind of consideration. It might mean that we may have to abandon some of the older oak furniture, that we may have to look at some other options in terms of being able to create a little bit of social distance. Thanks.
Councillor Richardson is next.
Well, thank you. And through you again as a supplemental, even though it was made mention that I think we need to get back, there have been some complexities to the issue that could legitimately be brought forward and have been. Perhaps it would be give staff due diligence to bring back some of the options that we've had for a secondary discussion to look in, like some of the comments that we've actually had, and not that we keep going back and forth, but maybe to look at that, like to look at the cameras that was mentioned into that, to look at what Lee or Councillor Andreessen had just made mention about the furnishing complexities, and to also look at, was mentioned about the mask mandate, and I think there's a couple of different loose strings out there that could maybe be tied up. I don't think it could be done up with a bow in the next report, but possibly to say, how much are we looking at for the extra bandwidth? There's a number of questions that are surrounding all of the different scenarios that have come forward tonight, and possibly getting answers to those could give some better light to councillors to make a better decision, because now it seems to be a little bit everywhere at this point in time. Just an opportunity. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Richardson. So I'm hearing what sounds like a pretty close position in terms of options here. The first option that I'm hearing is that option 3 sounds good to some people. The second option that I'm hearing is an option that has a different look at option 4 and also considers the reverse of option 3. In other words, an option that requires a little bit more staff investment in the choices and figuring out some of the details so that we can see what we're up for might be warranted. The best way to move forward is to make a choice on an option and see what the vote says, right? So I think, based on the comments that I've heard so far, I think what we'll do is we could try a resolution that suggests approving option 3. That's kind of what I heard in terms of the voices that spoke on this issue. So, Council, with your permission, then, okay, Councillor Behrens has a concern. Please go ahead.
I guess, Mayor Kasenberg, my concern is that you want me to consider an option, but someone mentioned about ditching the oak furniture. I mean, quite frankly, that's historic, and you don't need to ditch the oak furniture in order to achieve social distancing for council members. You know, it's got one horseshoe, it could have two in the chamber. So that would weigh into my concern of, or which option I would support. So I'm just a little bit concerned about, okay, how are we going to go about option 3 to achieve it? Because if you're going to ditch the oak furniture, I'm not voting for option 3, quite frankly. Thanks.
Okay, so yes, thank you, Councillor Burns. I think reasonably cautioned, and I understand the concern there. The clerk has offered to inject a few more comments at this point, if that's helpful. So I'm going to use my discretion and let her speak. Let me just set this up for her. Okay, hold on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So in terms of option 3 and reconfiguring the desks, so there are some tables and chambers that match the current oak horseshoe that we could add to the ends of the horseshoe to extend that a little bit to provide for some additional distancing between members. That being said, not sure if there would be able to be 6 feet between members, but again, it's not a public health requirement to have that 6 feet of distancing between people at this point. There is the option, if, as Councillor Andreessen has mentioned in the chat here, you could defer this back to staff if you'd like me to take this back and investigate option 3 and 4 a little bit more and report back to council. That's certainly an option too.
Okay, that's a further input from Clerk Klein. From my take, and it's just one man's view, having sat in this chamber for 2 lonely years, I can say, generally speaking, that these 2 extra oak desks could be deployed, but we still may be 1 seat short if we're trying to achieve 6 feet of distance in so doing. So we have just a slight deficit at this point in terms of if we are aspirational towards the social distance standard that has all along sort of been part of our pandemic journey. Again, I point out, and I heard Councillor Duncan express a grave concern about it. I understand too that many in the public have abandoned wearing the mask in various places. That doesn't change the fact that Dr. Clausen reiterated her guidance on this on Monday or on Friday at the Board of Health meeting, just for council's information. Councillor Richardson?
Yes, thank you once more. Are we absolutely stuck on June 20th as a start date, or was that a recommendation only? That I just think if there seems to be, like I made mention in my previous comments, there seems to be an awful lot of varying opinions here either way, that I don't know if it's rightly fair to actually try and nail one down this evening. If we're not stuck on June 20th, I don't think we should be hung up on that date until we get the absolutely correct decision that what we'd want to do. And it was made mention that possibly defer this until we have more information back from staff. Perhaps that's the best way to go, that we can all be a little more in harmony with our final decision here, so that we're not rubbing anyone the wrong way, but so to speak. But I would, that's my 2 cents again.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, after listening to all the discussion, I'm kind of gonna go with Matt's suggestion too, and Leanne's suggestion. I think we should defer this decision. Like maybe we need to be looking at the first meeting in July as our return date to give staff some more time to bring back some information, so everybody in council's comfortable with the decision we're going to make. And the environment could change between now and then too, as to recommendations from here in Perth Public Health as well.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Okay, it's interesting. I thought there was sort of a lean one way to 3. Now I'm not so sure that there's that lean anymore. From a process perspective, we could just introduce a resolution at this point that refers to a further staff report that explores additional issues and opportunities with options 3 and a reverse option 3 and also an option that changes option 4 with regards to use of our inherent devices already in play. And any other options perhaps that staff would come up with in the interim. If I'm providing chair sentiment, I think that we should consider a deferral resolution with the mandate to staff. That would be my preference at this point as well. But council can certainly countermand my suggestion that that's the first resolution that we take. So let's hear it. Is anyone seriously objecting to us considering a brief deferral so that staff can bring us more information? The clerk's not seeing any expression of interest in speaking at this point. Okay, so I kind of outlined the resolution, which is that council defers the decision and directs to staff further research on option 3 and its logistical considerations. A reverse version of option 3 as a tentative move in this, and also a revised version of option 4 that would consider savings associated with using their own devices for the sake of video delivery, if that's appropriate. Did I miss anything? Clerk Klein, am I missing anything in the notion there? Council, anyone see anything I'm missing that's obvious that you want in this resolution? It's your resolution, certainly. See anything, Lindsay? Okay, so I understand that Councillor Richardson would like the pleasure of moving this. So Councillor Richardson, can I consider you the mover of this one?
I'll move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will actually invite open expression of interest in being the seconder on this one, as opposed to assigning it to the order.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan will be our seconder. Thank you. All right. Any further discussion or debate on the approach, which is to ask staff to bring back some more information? We're not in that much of a rush. We want to give this due diligence. Are you seeing any indication, desire to speak at this point? All right. I'm going to assume that Deputy Clerk Jameson has the text for the resolution. Let's have that vote. And that is unanimously carried. It's a pleasure when the process brings us to that point. Right. So let's move on then. I need to figure out where I am, find my notes. This might be a really prudent time to have a 5 to 7 minute health break. By my clock, it's 8:54. So why don't we split that difference? Can we come back at 9 o'clock? And we'll resume our meeting, picking up with the next item on our agenda at 2.2 at 9 o'clock. All right, welcome back, councillors. Thank you for the brief break and the opportunity presented. Let's have a look next at item 5.2.2 on our agenda. The Treasury is bringing forward a bylaw that finalizes our budget process by establishing tax rates. I'm going to call on North Perth Director of Finance and Treasurer Fran Hale to speak to this report. Welcome, Ms. Hale.
Thank you very much, Mayor, members of council. With the passing of the tax ratios recently by the County of Perth, we're able to move forward with the tax rate calculations based on the budgets that have been passed by council for general purposes, stormwater management, and the listable BIA. So this evening, we'd like to present the bylaw with the rates for North Perth. And what we're bringing you tonight, bylaw 77/2022, to establish these rates for tax levy 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Any questions or first comments from council? Are we seeing anything? Okay, so I have a resolution that reads as follows: that bylaw 77-2022, being a bylaw to establish tax rates for the year 2022, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Let's turn to Councillor Seiler. Will you serve as our mover for this?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Nice to have you with us tonight. Let's turn now to item 5.3, reports from the Programs Department. As item 5.3.1, the Programs Department brings forward a report about recommending continuing partnership with the Gateway Center of Excellence in Rural Health related to the Lonely No More Seniors Program. I'll invite Manager of Programs Amy Gangle to speak to this recommendation. Welcome, Ms. Gangle.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg and members of council. As council are aware, since January 2021, municipal staff have been collaborating with Gateway Center of Excellence in Rural Health Lonely No More service providers to implement the Lonely No More program for North Perth. Through this program, additional community engagement programs were created, which our North Perth citizens were able to participate in. It has been a pleasure working with the service providers for this program, and it's been great to hear from our citizens how well they've greatly appreciated this. We have attached the Lonely No More Service Providers report that provides some additional details. Those individuals participating found the program to be very impactful. Older adults who are part of the program reported increased social connections as well as strengthening and expanding their support networks. Participants were also encouraged to identify and engage in healthy behaviors, and as a result, our recreation programs have benefited from that. Capacity limits for both North Perth staff and Gateway service providers in February affected staff being able to apply for an inclusive community grant. However, going forward, staff will continue to seek funding opportunities as they arrive and invest staff time to apply for them. It takes a lot of time to recruit, set up, train, follow up, and document for each program. Each hour of program costs approximately $44.82 per participant for the Gateway Center of Excellence and Rural Health Lonely No More service providers, plus municipal staff time to support the program in North Perth. But by continuing to offer the Lonely No More program, we can help offset costs that might be incurred through North Perth Community Services if these participants were to remain isolated. Since the current program is funded by Gateway Center of Excellence in Rural Health, Huron-focused collaborators, and grant funding, the service providers focus on services to Huron County residents. To continue to offer this program in North Perth, a financial commitment must be made. The suggestion of a membership fee was introduced, and this would be calculated based on a fee per unit service format. So based on the approximate costs that we've seen in the year, the current proposed membership fee is based on a $45 per hour cost of unit service. I've given in our finances a little bit of a breakdown of an example of what those costs would look like. Because of the success of the program and the impact it's had on our older citizens, staff are recommending that we continue our partnership ongoing, and for finances, we would incur into our operating budget. Available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Council, questions or first comments? Klein, we're not seeing anything. Okay, I have a resolution for our consideration. Then it reads as follows: the Council, the Municipality of North Perth recommends continuing the partnership with Gateway Center of Excellence in Rural Health Lonely No More service providers to provide ongoing support and services in the Lonely No More program as needed and as services are available. Can I call on Councillor Anstead to be our mover for this one?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you be our seconder?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is unanimously carried. Thank you very much. Ms. Campbell, always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate the work you're doing. Let's turn to item 5.4 on our agenda. This evening, there are no reports from our facilities department, but I know there's lots of industry going on there. Let's turn to item 5.5 on our agenda. This is reports from the manager of the Environmental Services Department. For item 5.5.1, Council is invited to approve an amendment to the fee schedules I and Q of the North Perth Fees and Licenses Bylaw pertaining to environmental services, such that we adjust the fees and approach for infill development that connects to municipal water and sanitary sewers, and that adjust the fee calculation approach for hauled wastewater and extra strength surcharges presenting at the wastewater treatment plant. That was a mouthful, and it took a lot to figure that out, actually. I'm going to invite Mr. Hackett, our Manager of Environmental Services, to address this item. Welcome, Mr. Hackett.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council. Yes, before you tonight, we have a couple amendments to go through. The main goal of these is to clearly address how we handle requests for service connections to existing municipal infrastructure. So we're talking about water and sewer and storm in the ground that already exists. These are typically, as you mentioned, infill lots where an applicant is requesting connection of water, sewer, storm to a new home being built on an empty lot. I'd note that these amendments do not pertain to new subdivisions, as service installation is the responsibility of the developer. And also, if services are being extended to an area of existing homes that don't already have services, payment would be addressed through a specific bylaw. So what we're looking at is the current fee structure currently has a flat rate of $5,500 per service for connection. And the intention of the current service connection charge was to cover the cost of installing those new services by either using municipal staff and equipment, or for the cost of hiring a private contractor on behalf of the applicant to install those services. We've been moving away from that over the last few years, as we're experiencing costs that are in excess of that flat rate. And that depends on a number of factors, such as the depth of the services, the distances from the main to the property line, whether or not there's extensive road work that needs to be completed, sidewalks, curb replacement, things like that can all really affect the cost. So we're finding we weren't always covering enough costs having a flat rate. So, and we also found that many of the applicants are using a private contractor that's already on site and are already doing work for them, connecting from the property line to their home. So we're proposing that we change the way we do it, and that we simply charge a service connection fee, and that would be $1,500 per service requested, and that would cover the cost for the administration, a number of inspections, and the actual tapping costs, because we would still tap into the mains. and the service connection fee would apply to all new services being applied for within municipally assumed service areas. The second part that we would be adding is a service connection security deposit for each service that's been requested. Municipal staff will estimate the cost of the works in the right of way, and this amount would be required as a security. Once the work is completed and it's been inspected again to make sure that it was done properly and everything looks good, they would get 80% of that security returned at that time. Then there would be a 12-month warranty period, after which it would be inspected a third time just to make sure that there were no deficiencies. And if there were none found, then the remaining 20% of that security deposit would be returned. So we've created a new service application form, which I've attached for your information. This is probably about number 8 of these that we've gone through. We've been changing it quite a bit, and I think we're very close to having it how we want it. The first page is simply all the information about where it is, what kind of service connection they're looking for, and the calculation of how to do the fee. The second page has more detailed information. It clearly starts out with, it's talking about installing service connections made to existing municipally owned water, wastewater, and stormwater mains. It has some information about the things that would be required beforehand, possibly a road closure permit or current WSIB and proof of insurance of the contractor that would be performing the work, and fees would have to be paid before work could commence. And then it outlines some of the owner responsibilities and some of the municipal responsibilities for this purpose. So that's the new application. And then the next part I should mention is, and I mentioned it under the comments, that we do have what we're calling special service areas. There's a number of these in North Perth and in most municipalities. These are areas where this specific type of a fee wouldn't apply because of previous agreements or bylaws that are in place. So I'll give you an example, and I did provide one draft or special service area, and that one would be Perth Line 86, that's west of the roundabout. New services were put to existing homes there. And so when that happens, they wouldn't be paying this connection fee. There would be a bylaw that would look at all of the would calculate all the costs, and it would determine what that would be for each of the services. It would also look at different financing options and a timeline of when people would be required to connect. Atwood is another one that when the water went in, excuse me, in parts of Atwood, not everyone was required to connect, but there would be a different cost rather than what you see before you tonight. This is simply for infill lots. Line 84, that's a relatively new one where services went in, and also there's some outstanding ones in Tremaine as well. So that this form would be mainly for internal use, that we keep track of ones that have connected and ones that are still required to connect. And if they want to connect at some point, we would know which ones they are and be able to refer to that. So looking at the actual fee schedules, we have Schedule I, that's the public works fees. And there's just a couple changes there. That was the under number 1 for labor. We're going from $45 to $46. It hasn't changed for a couple of years. And then we've added in under Schedule I, under number 12, the other fees. That's where we've added in changed the service connection fee to $1,500, and we have a little bit about the service connection security deposit there as well. Schedule Q, on the second page of Schedule Q, we have under miscellaneous rates for water, the service connection fee of $1,500 and the service connection security deposit. Same a little bit further down the page under sewers. And then the last change we would have is under the all wastewater and extra strength surcharge fees. As council may recall, they passed a new sewer use bylaw recently, and in that we talked about adding the parameter of H2S, total sulfides as H2S to be exact, to the fees. So that's been added into that long calculation up at the top. So it's one of the parameters we would consider when determining how much we charge to be able to receive those products. That is it. I could attempt to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hackett. Council, any questions or first comments on this matter? We're not seeing anything, so let's have the resolution then. Reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the proposed amendments to Schedule I and Schedule Q, the fees and license bylaw, effective immediately. Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston, will you serve as seconder?
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Hackett. Thank you, as always, to your team as well. We turn now to item 5.6, reports from our manager of operations. And for item 5.6.1, council is invited to proceed with the request for the improvement of the Bender Quartz Municipal Drain under Section 78 of the Drainage Act and to appoint an engineer. I'll invite Lyndon Couch, our manager of operations, to address this item. Welcome, Mr. Couch.
It's Scott here, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I'll take this one.
So, Mr. Richardson.
Right on. Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider a Section 78 for the improvement of the Bender Quartz Municipal Drain. The drain was originally constructed in 1953 under a report by James A. Howes. He was Ontario Land Surveyor. There are 3 segments to this drain: an open portion, a main tile, and a branch. The main tile begins on north part lot 27, concession 7, heads west and outlets into the open portion at lot 31, concession 7. The open drain runs west and outlets into the Kells Municipal Drain at north part lot 32, concession 7. The branch tile is located at lot 29, concession 7. The total length of the Bender Quartz drain is approximately 1,900 meters. The request for improvement has been submitted to the municipality under Section 78 by Kevin Jackson, owner of lot 30, concession 7. The municipality has made several repairs in the last 3 to 4 years. The drain is at the end of its service life. The proposed new tile would be approximately 1,300 meters and provide outlet for about 154 acres. Road 165 will probably be involved. There'll probably be a new crossing. Any costs associated with that will be presented by the engineer at the information meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Any questions or first comments from council on this matter? We're not seeing anything, so let's have the resolution. Reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act, proceeds with the request for improvement under Section 78 for the Bender Quartz Municipal Drain. And further, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth appoints GM Blue Plan to investigate the possible improvements and prepare a new drain report. Can I call on Councillor Richardson to be our mover for this?
I'll move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. For item 5.6.2, council receives a recommendation to award the tender for the Turnbull Municipal Drain. For our engineer on this one, Dietrich Engineering, the proposal is that this is awarded in 2 parts. The first to Hannah and Hamilton Construction, and the second to Robinson Farm Drainage. Again, Mr. Richardson, our drainage superintendent, is with us. Mr. Richardson, share the numbers and explain this one.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Yep, the engineer's assessed or estimate for this for the construction of it ended up at it was $720,000, and the amount that we had taken in or from the bids was ended up at $750,000. We decided to split this up into 2 to just make it more attractive or more competitive, because there are a lot more excavators around the area.
So with the part one with the open drain, indeed, Hannah and Hamilton come in very close to the engineer's estimate, and with the closed or the tile system, Robinson Farm Drainage came in at $367,000. They're about $30,000 over, but overall, that's a pretty good number for where we are here today with inflation and whatnot. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Council, any questions or first comments on this matter? Okay, we're not seeing any at this point, so let me read the resolution for consideration. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards tender number NP-018-22T for the Turnbull Municipal Drain 2022, as per the recommendation from Dietrich Engineering Limited, to Hannah and Hamilton Construction in the amount of $382,811.49 for Part 1, and to Robinson Farm Drainage in the amount of $367,273 for Part 2, for a total of $750,084.49 HST excluded. Councillor Andreessen, can I call on you to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstett, will you serve as a seconder on this one?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Mr. Richardson, always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Let's turn to item 5.7. This is reports from our Development and Protective Services Department. First time I think I've rolled that phrase out in a council meeting for an agenda item. Item 5.7.1 invites the promulgation of a fire protection agreement with the Municipality of North Perth and sees the North Perth Fire Department providing services south of Line 55 in the northern areas of West Perth. I'll invite North Perth Manager of Development and Protective Services and Fire Chief Jenny Pape to comment. Welcome, Chief Pape.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Good evening, Council. For many years, the North Perth Fire Department has provided fire protection services to a portion of the municipality of West Perth under a fire protection agreement. The current 7-year agreement term is set to expire at the end of this year. The amount charged to West Perth covers any expenses incurred by North Perth to provide these services. The existing agreement has served both municipalities well for a number of years, and staff recommends renewing the agreement for a further 7-year term. I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have at this time.
Thank you, Chief Pape. Council, questions or first comments? We're not seeing any, so let's have a look at the resolution here. That bylaw number 76-2022 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement with the Municipality of West Perth. Be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed. And the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Barons, can I call on you to be our mover on this one?
Absolutely. I remember hammering this deal out 7 years ago. So yes, I would move this motion.
Thank you, and glad for your leadership there. And Councillor Duncan, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I'll certainly second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. It changed the screen view of the voting panel. That's kind of interesting. Just an observation of the clerk here in the chamber. All right, let's turn to item 6 then on our agenda. Thank you, Chief Pape. For item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask of staff or of our committees at this time? The usual approach to getting the chair's attention applies. Klein, are we seeing anything? Nothing for item 6. All right, for item 7, we have received 2 items of correspondence which invite our action. For item 7.1, we have a request from the Moncton 165 Organizing Committee to waive a tent fee that will become payable as a result of the facility plan for the event. Council, I turn this to you. What is your will with respect to this request? Anyone want to venture a proposal here? Do we see anyone in the chat function here? Okay, I'm not hearing from any councillor. Okay, let's see here. Councillor Richardson, please.
Thank you, and through you. Even though the report states about the tent fee,
Councillor Richardson?
hello?
Did we lose you?
Hello? Am I still audible?
Yes, I can hear you, Councillor Richardson. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. A gremlin. I don't know what happened there. So as far as the tent fee goes, I think it makes it a little bit of a challenge when I think we're setting a little bit of precedence, and I don't know if we really want to go down that path. I just wanted to stress that point. Because what's going on here?
Yeah, we're still hearing you, Councillor Richardson, but I don't know if you can hear.
It seems toggling off and on. I might need a new headset. I do apologize. My apologies, Council. So I think I said, I don't know if my previous statement came through or not.
Yeah, we heard your comment about the establishment of precedents.
I just think it's very dangerous. I do think it's very generous to do, but there is an awful lot of charitable events that could be done, whether it be for any number of different facilities that the municipality provides. I just think we're setting a dangerous precedence that would just open significant gates in the future, and any other person that is, even though they've put a request in for a tent fee that is over the said limit for size of a tent, they've had to pay the fee. So it's unfortunate, but I don't mean to be the bad guy, but I just think it sets a very dangerous precedence for the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Duncan, I see your name next.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to agree with Matt on this. I think we have to be careful with these requests because we've denied many requests like this in the past from other groups. So I think we need to stay consistent on our views on this here. So I can't support waiving the tent fee. I think the CBO did give them some guidance to maybe use a couple of smaller tents to get around the fee. So I think that's where I stand on it too. I'm not in favor of waiving the fee.
Thank you. I've been advised that Councillor Barron's laptop has choked at this point, and so we expect her back shortly for council's information and for the minutes. Anyone else wish to speak on this one? Let me turn to the clerk. There's certainly a request in here. Do we need to do anything? If we decide to do nothing, it essentially renders a decision that we're not going to change anything, right? It would be appropriate to have a resolution.
So we can send it to in response to the letter.
So the clerk is suggesting that we do consider a resolution here. And it sounds to me like the voices that we've heard so far are going to move that we deny the request for the waiver of the tent fee for the Moncton, or coming from the Moncton 165 Organizing Committee. Councillor Richardson, you spoke first. Can I call on you to be our mover on this one?
I'll move that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, you also spoke along this policy vein. You wish to second this?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you very much. All right. Any discussion or debate? I'm not seeing any, so I think we should have that vote. And that is carried with Councillor Barron's absent from the vote. Thank you. Next then is item 7.2. We have an update and request from the Huron Perth Agricultural Science Center to issue a letter to them indicating this council's support of the project with some elaboration of the regional benefits of the project that will support their work in securing future grants and fundraising and future fundraising applications. Council, what is your will on this one? Anyone wish to make a comment? We're not seeing a lineup here. I would be happy to see a resolution that agrees with that premise. Let me read a resolution into the record. Then the council directs staff to prepare a letter of support for the Huron-Perth Agricultural Science Center project, signed by the mayor with elaboration about regional benefits to support future grant and fundraising applications. Councillor Seiler, can I call on you to be our mover for that one?
I'll move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder on this one?
Yes, I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
All right. Any discussion or debate on this one? And I'm sure our clerk team has kept up mostly, so let's have that vote. Can do. And that is carried, again, noting Councillor Barron's absence at the moment of that vote. Thank you. That brings us to item 8 on our agenda, which allows council to consider bylaws. It's item 8.1. Council is invited to approve a bylaw which amends North Perth Bylaw 160-2-2015 as amended, with intent to update schedules I and Q. We discussed this earlier. Are there any questions from council about this matter before we consider the resolution? I'm not seeing any, so let's put the resolution on the floor that bylaw 79-2022 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 160-2015 being the fees and licenses bylaw be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. And I think our next opportunity for moving is to Councillor Anstead.
Yes, I would move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Barons is absent still. So Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our seconder on this one?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried with a vote of 8-0. Let's turn next to item 9 on our agenda. Are there any councillors wishing leave to give notice of motion tonight? Okay, we're not seeing any response to that invitation, so let's turn to item 10 on our agenda. For item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Again, if you'd like to speak, draw your attention to me in the chat function, text chat. Okay, we're not seeing anything. Yes, I think we did do the student resolution right at the beginning of the meeting associated with the consent items. I think we took care of that, Councillor Andreessen.
We didn't pass a motion, but I think staff understood the intent.
Oh, did we not pass a motion?
No.
Oh. I thought I had given some text for that. Boy, I'm mentally imagining the meeting. Okay, we probably should. We should consider that. But there was a, can we check with the deputy clerk on this one?
We did pass a resolution.
We did pass a resolution. Thank you. Wholesome forward. Okay. So yes, that's fine. Welcome back, Councillor Barons. The perils of technology, indeed. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to item 11. Maybe before I go to item 11, I will indicate that I attended a very lovely a garden party at the Maitland Terrace residential complex on the weekend. They were celebrating the 35th anniversary of the building and opening of that complex. And it was a wonderfully executed event. Thank you to the staff and the board there for all that they did for that event. There was music, there was a little bit of dancing, I have to own, and certainly there was great hospitality at the event, and I appreciated all that was done for that event, and the fact that that organization, and I was informed of this, has now shed its mortgage. So they are mortgage free, which is a rather exciting development in the life of our community, I think. All right, let's consider agenda item number 11. We have one matter to be considered in a closed session meeting of council. I will now read the resolution that both explains and enables our action to enter closed session. The resolution is as follows: that council proceed in camera at 9:38 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to the following: advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, regarding the North Perth Police Services Board et al., ATS Stone. Can I call on Councillor Behrens, now that you're back? Will you serve as the mover of this resolution?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Johnston, will you be our seconder on this one?
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Council, at this point, we will make a few adjustments to our audiovisual configuration so that we may enter closed session. I invite those who have not been invited to remain for the closed session to exit the call at this time, with our appreciation for your participation tonight. And we will pick up the public session after our closed session. At this point, though, we're going to temporarily adjourn the open council meeting. The settings have been adjusted. Councillor Richardson, you're usually very good for checking on the settings to see if we're back and the system is performing as we expect. Can you just give us a check?
Yes, I will give you a check. Bear with me a moment. Just waiting for it to come back online.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
All right, sounds like we're back. And for item 12 on our agenda, I can confirm that council did discuss the matter identified in our enabling resolution for a closed session meeting of council and did give staff loose instructions pertaining to this matter, the essence of which will remain confidential at this time for the reasons stipulated in our enablement of closed session. Council has mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I have a draft of that for our consideration tonight. It reads as follows: that bylaw number 80-2022 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed. And that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Behrens to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I will make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. And that means we've come to the magic moment. Council, we have completed all the deliberations and taken action on the business that was put before us. Tonight, I have a motion to adjourn, which reads as follows: the council meeting adjourns at 10:07 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, June 13th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our mover?
Yes, I will make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston, will you be our seconder?
I would certainly second that.
Thank you very much. That's not debatable, so let's have that vote. And that motion is carried. This council will meet again for our next regular meeting, again using digital enabling technologies on Monday, June 13th, 2022. This meeting is adjourned. Thanks all. Have a great week.